Hey y'all, welcome back. The star of this week's show is a realistic SA-1500 integrated amplifier. I picked this one up this last summer. It was part of a bundle deal that I bought off a guy. He had a bunch of gear, and there was a couple of HK receivers, and this was part of it too. It was a realistic amp, and there was also some studio gear that was intended for bands, like some rack gear. I'm not going to get too into that, but this one interests me. The old realistic SA-1500, eh? It is a heavy unit. It has got a lot of weight to it. How much does it weigh? Let's see. It's got specifications here. This is a 70 watt, they call it a 70 watt stereo amplifier, but it's 35 watts per channel. IHF power into 4 ohms, 80 watts per channel, into 8 ohms, 75 watts per channel. Frequency response, plus and minus 2 dBs, 20 to 20. Blah blah blah. Doesn't have weight. It can handle 4 to 16 ohm loads. Yeah, it doesn't have much else, I don't think. No. It's, I'll get to it in a minute here, but it's got those goofy connectors on the back. It's got a schematic, which is good. I'm not sure if I'll need it, because I think the guy that I bought it off said he used it in his place of business. It was kind of like an amplifier just for background music in his, I don't know if he had a store or something else, but it was used for background music in his business. So turn it around, if I can bow-hunk this thing. It's got these weird speaker connectors that were proprietary to Radio Shack back in the 70s, I believe. And then they have the RCA connections, which is okay because I have I do have RCA connectors for speakers, and I'll just use those. 2 phono inputs, and one of them switchable between high and low. 2 phono inputs, tuner, auxiliary, 2 auxiliaries, and 2 tape loops, 2 speaker outputs. So it's a fairly good, it's fairly optioned out pretty good. One thing I like about the realistic gear from that era is they used real wood. They not like the Pioneers and the Sansuis where they use that faux vinyl wrap. This is actually real walnut, and it's kind of beat up here, it's scratched. I don't know what I can do for that. Maybe I can put some oil on it and make those scratches disappear. But it's fairly nice shape. It's not no big chunks missing. One bad thing is this plastic is broken. Let's take the lid off, have a look inside. From the previous owner said it was working, and I'll believe him for now. Until we get it open and try it out. I expect it has the usual array of dirty pots and switches, but we'll see how that performs. Oh, it's heavy. One thing this thing has is it's got some nice features. It's got bass, treble, mid-range. It's got 2 output speaker switches, and then it's got this Quatrafox. I don't know what that is, but it's in with the speaker switches. So I think it might tie the speakers together and have, I don't know, loudness, mono, 2 tape monitors. It's got high filter here at 2 different settings, 7 kilohertz and 10 kilohertz. It's got a tone flat control, and it's got 2 low filters, 30 hertz or 50 hertz. It has a power indicator, and it has an overload light. Look at that. Maybe we can get that to light up. This is loose, and you know what? It's just stapled in. I don't know if somebody tried gluing this down, but it's going to need to be adhered. I'll probably have to put some new adhesive on there. It's not a very good design if they have it like this and you put another piece of equipment on there, you can just press it right out. It's a shame they didn't think of that better solution for that. But they did put a strut in here to keep it from collapsing. So. Got some cardboard shielding, RFI shielding, because this thing's pretty old. This thing's really old. I can't get over how heavy that transformer is. These caps held down with the circuit glue. Looks like I might have a leaking cap here. You can't see. Let me get this better. So overall it looks pretty good, pretty clean. Not much dust considering it had an open top. And like I said, there's circuit glue on these caps, these bigger caps. Unicorn. 50 volts, 6,000 microfarad. I wonder if those are still good. These are tone boards in here. Everything under the cardboard. And circuit board glued to another circuit board. So this will be an interesting. Something fell out. Look at that metallic staple from the cover fell into the electronic circuitry. That's why you don't put staples to hold stuff together. And here's two more. I don't know if these are paper staples. I don't know. Yeah. Somebody tried. Are these staples original? Or did somebody add these in? Here's another one that's loose. So I'll have to address that. I'll have to get rid of these staples. If they're falling into the circuitry, that's no good. We'll have to glue this down somehow so it's secure. And we'll work on that. But, you know, if you got one of these, this is a problem. You don't want metallic staples falling down on your power amplifier. Throw those away. How many more do we got? That was it. Has a removable bottom for approximately 50% of it, so I'll take this off, have a squint. Gives us access to the bottom side of the power amplifier only. I guess that's where they expected all the service to happen. Everything looks pretty virgin. I don't think anybody's been in here doing any kind of work. It all looks good. Let's take the shield off, have a squint at the other stuff, and have this out. Cardboard shield. And that exposes the top of the tone controls and the volume and the preamplifier. And the switching here on this end. So I see the 3 fuses here. They look like they're original and they're intact. And then the main fuse for the power supply is a 5 amp, 125 volts. Is exactly what it says in the back, so that's good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hook up a pair of speakers and an audio source, tone generator, and let's just see how it works. just out of the box here. Okay, here we go. No power light. Feed it with a tone. We got nothing. Okay, we got 35 volts there, 35 out there, should be plus minus 35. Yes, we got power into this amplifier, but we're not getting any sound. Oh, maybe I turn the speakers on. There we go. Duh! A little bit scratchy. A little bit scratchy. So we just got dirty switches and pots. It seems to be working. That doesn't sound good. We got distortion. Let's hook up a scope. Okay, so I'm all wired up. Got 2 channels of the scope hooked up. You should be able to see them on the screen. Let's turn this thing on. Still feeding it 1000 hertz. And we should have a signal. Oh yeah. Look at that right channel in the bottom trace there. It's all distortion. That sounds terrible. I'm only at 0.74 volts RMS. So we definitely have a problem in the amplifier. Let's turn this off. Let's turn this up. I got no load on it, so it's driving essentially nothing right now. But let's turn this up and see if we can get it to clip. There's clipping there. Let me turn my probes down. Okay. So that's full power output, even though there's no load, and look at the distortion on that. That's pretty bad for that one channel. So we got a little bit of work ahead of us. So I'm going to suspect a bad transistor, or maybe it's bad caps. But definitely something's going on in there. So let's tie into it. Alright, so what I've done is I moved my scope from the output to the input of the power amplifier. And I'm scoping both channels, pin 1 and pin 10. There's markings on the board, pin 1, pin 10 for right and left channel. I don't know which is which, I didn't pay attention. But let's feed it a signal again and see if we still get that distortion. Okay, so I got scopes hooked up to both channels coming out of the preamp going into the main amplifier. And I'm going to turn up the volume. Turn up the volume. Everything's set to normal. And it looks like we still have a problem in that right channel. The mono switch does nothing. Ah, look at this. I turn in the tone control and it goes back to normal. I take the tone control out. Sorry, the controls are in now and they're not working. If I cut them out, bypass them, it works normal. So the problem's in the tone circuit. Some distortion there. Really bad distortion on that tone circuit. Okay, at least we know where to look. Okay, so let's have a look at this schematic so we can try and figure out where we're going to focus our efforts here. So on the output, here and here, I scoped it and it had distortion. So what I did is I moved the scope probes back to here and here, the input of the main amplifier, and the right channel still has distortion. So as soon as straight out of the preamplifier high-low filters is the switch TS1, TS2, which is your tone cut switch. When I cut out the tone, when I click the switch down opposite what it's shown here, it feeds it directly from here, and it was a clean signal. When I switch it, the tone control bypass out is kind of misleading, this in and out. You would think that in would be your tone controls are in and out would be that they're cut out, but it's backwards. So when I switch it to out, I get distortion. Where's the distortion? It's in one of these two amplifiers. Which one's right or left here? I don't know. Let me see. Right. This is the right channel, I believe. So something is going on within this little circuit here, and either we got a transistor that's out or a bad capacitor. There is a 3.3 microfarad here and here, and that's pretty much it. Other than that, it's all 0.22, 0.33, 100 picofarads, 4.7 resistors, 220K, a 0.82 and a 0.15. That's how they get the different FS2. I'll tell you what FS2 is. That is FS1 and FS2. That's the low frequency filter switch, 50 flat, 30 hertz. So the problem lies in this circuit here. So what do we got here? Q, where's the transistor numbers? I don't see any transistor numbers down here. Transistor 501 and 502. Let's go check those and we'll see what we can find. Alright, number of things. I pretty much had to take the front panels off to access everything here. This printed circuit board is where I wanted to start looking. If I want to do any switch cleaning, pot cleaning, I had to take the front panel off, so it's what it is. Now I'm looking at the schematic. This schematic, I notice I got it off of Hi-Fi Engine, and this is for the 230 volt AC for European models, this schematic. And it doesn't quite match my amplifier, and I'll tell you why. If I look under here, there's a printed circuit board tacked on here. I don't know if you can see it in the camera. There's a little printed circuit board, and it's got a transistor, and it has what it looks like is a dual reed relay made by Hitachi. It's got it's all epoxy encased, and it looks like it's got two reeds, and it's got the coil around in the housing. I can't find that in this schematic anywhere. I looked and looked, and I could not find a reference to a reed relay. And I don't know what it's doing. Even the transistors marked transistor 903, I can find 901 and 902, but I can't find transistor 903 on this. These are 500, this one's 700. These transistors are 600, 400, 200, 100, 900. And there's only 2 transistors, there's no 903. So I don't know what I got here. I'm trying to date this thing, and what I did is there used to be a website on the internet, Radio Shack catalogs. I can't remember the name of it, but you could go there and you could download or view all of the Radio Shack catalogs from the 70s, 80s, and up. And I've been looking through all these catalogs, and I cannot find this model listed anywhere in the catalogs. I'm missing 1975, and I think this was built in 1975. But usually Radio Shack, when they introduce a new receiver or amplifier or something, they at least let it run for a couple of years before they decide to switch things up. And I see no mention of it. I can see the SA-1000 and I can see the SA-2000, but I can't see the SA-1500. Now I don't know if that's a Canadian only model, or maybe it's a European only model and wasn't introduced into the United States. I don't know, but I can't find it in their catalogs as of right now. And another thing is the website for the Radio Shack catalogs has gone down. I guess there's a problem with the hosting website, GoDaddy, and they're having some problems there, and they're looking for an alternative place to host their website. So if you go online and look for Radio Shack catalogs right now, as of November 2020, you're not going to find it, and there's no word on when it's going to come back. Okay, so I think I found the problem. I went through this board, I checked the transistors, I checked the electrolytics, everything's good. And this board here relates to that section that I talked about on the schematic. These 4 transistors. There's right and left. Or is it left and right? I don't know. Doesn't matter. So I went searching back farther, and I found a problem here, I believe. There's a couple of capacitors that are 3.3 microfarad that are reading bad. Let's try and find them again. I didn't mark them, I just... this one here. That one's not bad. Here's a 3.3 here. See, that one reads 13 ohms. That one's high ESR. And the next one, in the other channel, I believe, comes up at 4 ohms. This one here doesn't even register. Now I believe this is the culprit causing the distortion. There is a 3.3 microfarad. Let's pull it out and test it on the other one, just to confirm. But I think that's my problem with the distortion. Okay, which one was I going to pull out first? That one's 13. Let's pull this one out and have a look at it. I think this one's bad as well. I think this is the one for... well, hang on, let's check. This is capacitor C413A. C413A is on the output of this last stage on the collector, and it's the last shot out before it goes to the next stage. C413A. So this one measures 3.8 microfarad, and it's got a 16.5 ohm ESR, which is not very good. let's see about this other one. 413B, that's for the other channel. B. It measures 430 picofarads and it's got a 260 kilo ohm ESR. So that's your open circuit right there. That's not even a capacitor anymore. That is what's causing our distortion in the one channel. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to recap this whole thing because, like I said, I can't figure out how old this is. I think it's 1975. And if that's the case, we've got 45 years on these caps, and I think a lot of them are starting to get weak, and eventually they're all going to fail. So I'm just going to redo it completely. There's a lot of caps in here, but I think it'll be worth it in the end. I'll check the power capacitors and see. I didn't notice any ripple when we did the power tests, so I have a feeling these are good. But I can still replace these. We can probably upgrade them too. So we'll have a look at this. I'll pull these out and test them. Alright, I've gone through and done a lot of work here. Done a full recap on the power amplifier, all the preamplifier and tone boards, and everything else. I've done clean switches. I've cleaned the pots, replaced the pilot lamp, gone through and tested everything I could test pretty much. Resistors are all testing within tolerance. These capacitors, I tested them out of circuit and they are perfect. They're 6,000 microfarad at 50 volts and they measure out at about 6,200 microfarads, and they both have a ESR of about 10 milliohms. Those are good. I'm not going to touch those. Pretty much everything's done. I have to just start reassembly now. Start putting things back together today, and then we can work on to testing. I cleaned the boards, got all the rosin flux off, or majority of it anyway. Cleaned them up quite a bit, and everything's been lubricated and cleaned. So yeah, on to assembly. Alright, so we got everything back together again. It's hooked up to a dummy load. We're going to do some tests here. 2 tests. I want to make sure that our distortion is gone. The one that we discovered on our first test. And then we want to make sure that everything's good balanced between both channels. I got it all wired in, 1000 hertz tone and 8 ohm dummy loads. Let's turn this on. And let's turn it up. And we'll increase this up to clipping. Let's see right there. And we're at 19.03 volts RMS. .1. Let's say 19.1. It's doing good. Turn the tone controls. When I turn when I turn off the tone controls, the amplitude increases a little bit and it goes into clipping. So I'll just back that off a bit. You can see that there's a little bit of a mainly on the right channel. So with the tones control locked out, the controls have no effect. That's exactly what we wanted to see. Okay, let's try bass. Controls are clean. That's the mid-range. Treble. Balance. All the pots are clean. Okay, let's turn up the frequency. I hear a lot of noise coming from the amplifier. I guess that's from the power transformer. It's 20 kilohertz. Kilohertz at clipping. I'm only getting 18.8. It's holding up well. That's 20 kilohertz. Let's try a square wave. $20 kilohertz. Tone controls are flat. Let's turn the frequency down. Having a little hard time with this square wave. But it's not a performance amplifier. It's doing what it's designed to do, and I think it's working really well. So I'm going to call it quits here, and I'm going to put this into use, and I want to see the overload light's not coming on. I don't know what triggers it. I want to see how it sounds, and I have a feeling it's going to sound pretty good. Frequency response on the top end was starting to roll off around 20 kilohertz, but I don't think that's a big deal. But I think it's a nice little amp. Alright, so that wraps up this one. Did a full recap on it. Replaced a lot of caps here. Those are 37 in total. A lot of these caps were in good condition still and could have been left in the circuit. These ones here on this side. And on this side, these ones have failed or are starting to fail. So that's roughly 30% of the caps on this were either bad or are on the verge of being bad. These ones are holding up still. So I just want to mention that people say, well, you shouldn't recap an amplifier and put all new caps in it without, just replace the bad ones and leave it at that and leave the good ones alone. Well, no, because if these are 45 years old, I don't expect they're going to last much longer. And doing a full recap like this, I believe, extends its life another 45 years until the next person comes along and feels it needs a recap. These capacitors are all of the Unicon brand, and Japanese. This thing was Japanese built, Japanese caps. They're holding out, but a lot of them failed. Like I said, a lot of them did fail. And of course I replaced the pilot light 12-volt lamp. But I just want to point out that, even though there was one cap in the 37 that caused this amplifier to misbehave, there were several others that were on the verge of failing to the point where it would cause this to not work at all. The cap that did fail was directly in the audio path. So when I did my recap, all the caps that were in the audio path got replaced with audio grade caps, and the remainder, for example, this one here is 1000 microfarad at 50 volts. That was this one, and I replaced that with the 2200 just to upgrade it and give it a little better ripple rejection. This thing is so heavy. Why is it so heavy? But anyways, that's where I'm going to leave this. I'll put this back together and color a day, and we got lots more stuff to look at and work on. And I got some antique vintage radios, and I got some vintage stereo gear coming up. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching.